This is one of the best dystopian stories, YA or otherwise, that I think I've ever read. Welcome back, everyone. Hi, if you're new, my name is Tori, and today I am going to be reviewing the Arc of the Scythe Trilogy by Neal Shusterman. And this is going to be completely spoiler-free, so you can watch it from beginning to end. Yay! So I started this series at the end of December and I just finished a couple of days ago. So that should really tell you how, I just feel like I binged it, and I feel like that should tell you like how much I loved this story. I loved these books, these characters, the world. It was a fantastic reading experience. So since I did start this series at the end of December, I have mentioned these books in those like last two videos that I posted. So if you watched those two videos, I'm sorry, but you have to bear with me one more time as I go through the synopsis for anybody who might be new watching this. So let's just get it out the way. The Arc of the Scythe Trilogy is set in this dystopian futuristic world where people can no longer they can't die, they can only be killed now if a scythe comes and kills them. And that can happen in a number of different ways. And so in the first book, Scythe, we have two main characters, Citra and Rowan, and the two of them become apprentices to a scythe, and they basically start learning the art of killing and taking a life, and really the lore and the history and just how to be a scythe, how to be a good scythe. So that's really where our story starts, and then something happens in the first book that really sets our two main characters on different paths to apprenticeship in terms of how they deal with it and just go about things, and the way they internalize their training and all that kind of stuff. And it is such a good character study too. I loved all of these books from the beginning of the first book to the end of the last book. I love these books for a few different reasons. The first one is the storytelling. I feel like Neal Shusterman just knew the story that he wanted to tell and took his time with it. I love the characters, the way he writes his characters and their motivations for doing things, and the way, like, why they believe the things that they do. It's just, you can tell that he really took his time in developing this story and these characters. And the world is so well crafted and well thought out. I love the fact that in the last couple of books we get a lot of the world in the first book, of course, Scythe, but especially in Thunderhead and in the Toll, the world really starts opening up. And not only is the plot expanding a little bit, we're getting a lot of different subplots, we're meeting so many different new characters, and it just feels like a really well realized and well crafted story and world. The other thing that I love are these characters. Every character that you meet, there was one in the last book that I wasn't crazy about, but aside from that, especially our two main characters, Citra and Rowan, are such well-written characters. I feel like their motivations for doing things always made sense, and they are so firmly rooted in their beliefs about what they are doing that it comes to a point where it's almost unshakable. And I love seeing that. One thing that I really dislike when I'm reading, especially, and I see this a lot in young adult books especially, and especially the ones that are written in multiple perspectives, is you can have a misunderstanding, like a really small misunderstanding between characters, and it changes the course of the whole story, because now one character thinks one thing and they don't talk it out with the other character, and things get jumbled and messy, and like their beliefs are so easily shaken, and the story just starts falling apart because of something that could have been cleared up in one sentence of conversation. And that is like my pet peeve when I'm reading it. But in this trilogy, it's like they have beliefs of steel. It's like, this is what I'm doing, this is where we need to go, and their loyalty to each other on a certain level, their loyalty to each other just makes this book incredible. That's all I ask for when I read. I just want characters to do things that make sense. The first book, Scythe, was amazing. It was such a great introduction to this world and these characters and the problem. I don't even want to tell you what the problem is, because I feel like that's getting into spoiler territory. But the way that the story kind of blossoms out, this book sucks you in. And a lot of the things that, just the whole nature of death and dying and taking lives, when you finish the first book, you just want to ask yourself so many questions, and you're just like thinking about all kind of different things. And I love that. I want to keep thinking about a book when I finish it, despite the fact that I loved the first book so much and thought it was a great intro and setup to the rest of this story. Thunderhead, the second book, this one was amazing. There came a point when I just seriously could not put this book down. I was taking it to brush my teeth. I was taking it to pour coffee. I mean, like, I was walking around at work, because I walk around like just to get up from my desk and walk around. I would take this with me when I was walking around my floor just so I could keep reading it. It is so good. The problems that are presented in book one, they carry over flawlessly into book two. And these characters, they really start coming into their own more as the characters that they're gonna be. Does that even make sense? But it just, oh God, it's so well written. It's so well done. And what I really love about, especially when you get into Thunderhead and the Toll, these aren't fast-paced books in my opinion. First of all, these last two are over 500 pages. The third one in particular is like over 600 pages. And it's not that fast, speedy action that I normally find when I read YA books. This is like, it's very slow in some parts. The narrative can be really slow because Neal Shusterman is taking his time. We get to learn a lot more about one group of characters in particular in Thunderhead and their role in kind of the overarching narrative. And I think that is handled so well. And I think it just carries over perfectly into the final book, The Toll. Where do we start with The Toll? The Toll, you guys, I love this book, but I do have a few complaints. I think overall, I didn't really have any complaints with this trilogy until I got to this last book. And last books are hard. That does not mean I didn't love this. I love this book. I thought it was a great end to this series. I thought it made sense. I think I'm still kind of coming to terms with some of the things that happened in this last book, but I mean, it was very well handled and a very, very satisfying end to this whole trilogy. However, this book is really long. Ignore the coffee stains. I drank a lot of coffee reading this book, but this book is like 625 pages. And there comes a point in the middle where the narrative just feels like it slows down a lot. We are introduced to a pretty large, not large, but we're introduced to a pretty sizable number of new characters in this book. And we spend a lot of time with those new characters in this book. And just from the way that Neal writes already, it's not fast paced. The plot doesn't move very quickly, in my opinion. That is so evident in this book because there really came a point where I'm like, oh my God, we're back to this character again. We just left them. I didn't care for what they were doing the last time we were in their chapter. So this book did feel a little bit dry near the middle, but the way everything falls into place as the book continues on, there are a lot of moving pieces in The Toll. It's like puzzle pieces almost coming together, slowly coming together. You have to like sift through all the pieces to finally get the full picture. And it really is kind of mind blowing. I had a jaw dropping moment when I was reading The Toll, and I'm still a little embarrassed because I was at work when I was reading it. I was sitting in our little like kitchen area and I was reading this book, eating my lunch, and I was reading this chapter and something happened and like my jaw literally dropped and I was like just kind of sitting there in shock for a couple of minutes. And I know people were looking at me because you have to come through the kitchen, like you have to come through that area to get like cups and stuff for water and coffee and things that you want. And I know people were coming through there looking at me like, is she okay? Like it was a little embarrassing, but this book in particular, I think of all of them, really got some gut-wrenching reactions out of me and I loved it. Now that I am finished with these books, when I think about it from page one of the first book to the last page of the final book, I'm really kind of in awe right now because it feels like a really long, really satisfying journey and really one of the best reading experiences that I've had in a really long time in terms of series or trilogies or anything that I've read. This is definitely a standout trilogy. I think it's now one of my favorites of all time. So that is it for me, you guys. Thank you so much for listening to all of my little rambling thoughts about how much I really enjoyed this trilogy. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend this. I cannot recommend this enough. It is really a great piece of work, all three of them. So let me know if you have read them. No spoilers in the comments because I know Probably some people have not read them or are reading them and haven't finished, so no spoilers down below. Yeah, if you read it, I want to talk to you about it. DM me on Instagram. Like, let's chat. I need to talk about this some more. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, take care.